Scholar at the Department of East Asian Studies, University of Delhi, and academic counselor here at IGNO. And I've been teaching you the paper BPAE 141, Right to Information. So I welcome you all to today's learning session, and let us begin our class. So far in this paper, if you look back at what we've done, so far we've discussed the first block regarding right to information. As part of that, we had discussed about the evolution of this concept of right to information, and also the aims and achievements with which this entire movement for right to information, it has been going on since many decades now. And also we had discussed some of the limitations of that movement and of this concept of right to information, especially with respect to India. Moving on, in the second block, we had discussed about the RTI Act of 2005, that we had discussed. And also we had discussed the rules related to the RTI Act and how it was implemented. And finally, we had winded up the second block by discussing the Central Information Commission and the State Information Commissions. So that we have done. And moving on, in the third block, which was regarding the implementation of the RTI Act of 2005 and the issues and challenges which it had encountered, the implementation of this act had encountered. So regarding that, we had discussed the concepts of administrative efficiency, transparency, accountability, which was ensured through the RTI Act of 2005, that we had done. And also we had done the role of the Central Information and the State Information Commissions as well. So that we had discussed in the last class. In today's class, we will be discussing the constraints that this RTI Act of 2005 has faced in its implementation at the district level. So while this was being implemented at the district level, there were certain constraints which it encountered. That is what we are going to discuss in today's class. And after that, we will be discussing the role of media. What is the role that media has played? Print media, electronic media, social media. What are the roles that they have played in the implementation of this very important RTI Act of 2005? So let us begin by discussing the constraints that this RTI Act of 2005 encountered at the district level while it was being implemented. So let us begin with the third unit, with the eighth unit of the third block, which is regarding the RTI Act of 2005, the constraints in its implementation at the district level. So as we all know, as we have already discussed also in the previous classes, that this RTI, this concept of right to information, it has been identified as an indicator of inclusive governance. When we talk about inclusive governance and when we talk about good governance, this concept of RTI, right to information, becomes very important. Now, why does it become important? Because it ensures participation of the citizens in the process of governance. And so participation of citizens, to ensure the participation of citizens, to ensure a true participatory democracy, only conducting periodic elections, only that is not enough. That is a very important aspect of ensuring participation of people in the process of governance. However, that is not the only thing that is sufficient. So the continuous legitimation of the process of governance and of the government itself, the process of legitimization, that is a continuous process. So the government, it does not have legitimacy forever. It can lose legitimacy also. So this process of legitimization, it is a continuous process. And this legitimization, it can only be ensured by making the citizens a part of the decision making process. So the citizens, they should be made a part of the decision making process. And the most cost effective way of doing this is to freely share all the information about the functioning of the government with the citizens. So that is the most cost effective way of making the citizens a part of the decision making process, which is to freely share all the information about the functioning of the government with the citizens. And that is why the RTI becomes very important, the concept of RTI. And this concept, this information sharing with the citizen, it not only enables the citizens to know the basis on which decision making had been done by the government, but it also provides them an opportunity to question the working of the government in a sustainable manner. So, therefore, we see the RTI Act of 2005, it has marked a paradigm shift in Indian democracy by providing unrestrained access to information to the citizens. Therefore, it has been a paradigm shift in Indian democracy, because it gives people an opportunity to question the working of the government in a sustainable manner. And it also enables them to know the basis on which certain decisions had been taken by the government, which has been elected by the people and which has to work for the people and which consists of the people. So to ensure its accountability, this right to information, and especially in the context of India, this Right to Information Act of 2005, it has proven to be a paradigm shift in Indian democracy. And the institutionalization of this RTI regime, it has to be recognized as a far-reaching step towards the deepening of the roots of democracy in our country. So RTI and its institutionalization, it has deepened the very roots of our democracy, of Indian democracy. And in this context, it becomes pertinent to highlight the fact that the Constitution of India, it had introduced parliamentary democracy at the national and state levels in 1950, when it came into effect on 26th January. And we also know that we have also discussed in previous classes that the 73rd and 74th Amendments to the Constitution of India, they had merely created grassroots democracy in the rural and urban areas. And participatory democracy, when we talk about participatory democracy, so the Constitution, it provided for parliamentary democracy in 1950 at the central and at the state levels. The 73rd and 74th Amendment, they provided for grassroots democracy in 1992 by giving the panchayats and the urban local bodies constitutional status. However, this RTI Act of 2005, in true sense, it introduced participatory democracy in India. And it sought to make governance accountable at all the levels, right from the center to the state to the panchayat and urban local bodies. So at all the three tiers of government, it sought to make governance accountable. And this right to information, the right that it gives to the people who want to seek this information, it is only a basic prerequisite for good governance, but also it is a very important thing for the realization of the basic human rights. So if the basic human rights like right to education, right to healthcare, if they are to be realized, then also this right to information, it becomes extremely crucial. And as we have already discussed in the previous classes as well, that this Right to Information Act of 2005, it has been a landmark legislation. And why has it been a landmark legislation in the context of India? Because it has enabled the common citizens of our nation to participate enthusiastically in the entire process of governance. And how can they do that? How can they participate enthusiastically in the process of governance? They can do that by exercising their right to seek information from the government and its agencies. So, besides empowering the citizens and giving them a right to seek information from the government, thereby further augmenting participatory democracy in our country, and so by doing all these things, it has definitely empowered the citizens of our nation. However, besides empowering the citizens, this RTI Act of 2005 has also fixed the responsibility on the officials for timely delivery of information to the information seekers. So the officials who are employed, who are working in the Central Information Commission and the State Information Commission, they also have a responsibility. They have also been entrusted with a responsibility. What is that responsibility? That is regarding timely delivery of information to the information seekers. And in the long run, the motto of all these measures relating to RTI is to curb corruption. And the institutionalization of this RTI regime, it has created a sort of euphoria amongst the people. That euphoria is regarding the dawn of a participatory, responsive, sensitive, humane, honest, and people-friendly level at people-friendly government, people-friendly regime at all the levels of the government, from the top, that is the central, to the state, to the panchayats and urban local bodies. So at all these levels, there has been an attempt to create a participatory, a responsive government which responds to the grievances of the citizens, and a government which is sensitive of the problems that is being faced by the citizens, and which is humane also. It's not cruel, and it is honest. So of course honesty is something that this act has ensured, and also it is people friendly as well. It's not antagonistic to the people. So there has been a dawn of an era of governance which includes all these characteristics that we have discussed, from the top to the bottom level. And although it can be stated without any hesitation that on the basis of the working of the RTI regime, which has now been in effect for about 19 years, transparency has remained elusive to a great extent. So the basic aim of this act was to ensure transparency, but transparency has eluded this act to a large extent, it can be said. Now, why has this happened? Because there is a centuries old culture of secrecy in our nation, which was inherited by the bureaucracy from the colonial era. And that culture of secrecy has not been wiped out entirely. And that is why good governance, it remains an unfinished agenda. So there have been attempts to ensure maximum governance and minimum government. So, and also zero tolerance for corruption has been a declared policy of the government. However, good governance, it is not an agenda which is unfinished, which has been accomplished. It is still an unfinished agenda. Now, if we see what are the reasons which are responsible for the non-fulfillment of this promise of good governance that was made in this RTI Act of 2005 also. If we see why this promise was not fulfilled to the extent it should have been through this RTI regime, this entire act was brought in 2005 to ensure good governance, to ensure transparency, to seek accountability from those in power. However, why is it so that all these agendas, they have not been fulfilled to that extent? What is the reason that this agenda of this promise of good governance, it has not been fulfilled? So, the one of the major reasons for the non-fulfillment of this promise of good governance in our country, which was aimed through the RTI regime, one of the main reasons has been the governance at cutting edge, that is the district administration. So it continues to remain structured in a colonial mode. So now let us discuss the nature and ambit of district administration. Since we are talking about the implementation of RTI Act at the district level, let us discuss the nature and ambit of district administration. So the district administration, it has continued to be responsible for the functioning of the police, for the functioning of the jails, the revenue, the public health, the food and civil supplies, social welfare, child development, urban local governance, town planning, development, and also Panchayati Raj as well. All these departments are the cutting edge of state administration. So the district administration, it is responsible for all these departments that we have discussed. That is police, jails, revenue, public health, food and civil supplies, social welfare and child development, urban local governance, town planning and development, and also Panchayati Raj as well. So the district administration is responsible for all of these. And besides the following areas that we have discussed, district, it remains as the main operational unit of governance. That we have also discussed in the previous papers that I have taught. And district level officers and staff of various departments of the state government and public sector enterprises. So development agencies like the District Rural Development Agency, DRDA, and the Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies, they also are very crucial aspects of the district level governance. So there are various agencies which are responsible for implementing special projects and programs which are responsible for meeting specific objectives. They are also run from the district level. And there are officers of the central government organizations also at the district level. And the machinery for law and order is also working at the district level only. The institutional credit system, that also works there. Cooperative institutions which are working in various sectors like dairy cooperatives, agricultural cooperatives relating to minor irrigation, they all function at the district level. And also there are certain community based organizations and trade channels as well. So that is why you see the district is of utmost importance. When we talk about implementation of any act, of any law, of any policy of the government, it takes place at the district level. District is the grassroots of governance. So it may be formulated at the state level or at the central level, but it is the district where the implementation takes place. So the chief minister's secretariat and the heads of the various department in that secretariat, in the state secretariat, they have to operate through the district administration for the implementation of their decisions. So therefore, a transparent working of the district administration is basic requisite for good governance for the people. So if the district administration is working transparently, then only good governance can be ensured. So it's sine qua non. It's sine qua non for ensuring good governance at the for people. The district administration, it has to work transparently. So the real importance and necessity of having an effective RTI regime, it can be understood in the context of the above stated myriad functions that we have discussed of the district. So all these functions that we have discussed so far, they are discharged at the district level of administration. And from there we can understand that why there is a need, there is a necessity to have an effective RTI regime in our country, and only a smooth and earnest rollout of this RTI law at this cutting edge level, that is at this district level, only that can serve the lofty ideals of accountability and transparency, which have been enshrined in this RTI Act of 2005. So, besides these hierarchical and procedural pitfalls that we have discussed, there are a large number of other factors as well which hamper the needed implementation of this statute. What are these? So, on the basis of the experience of the RTI Act in the last 19 years, and also on the basis of the findings of various empirical studies that have been carried out by various NGOs, institutions, as well as individuals as well, the constraints in the implementation of this RTI Act at the district level, they can be summarized as under. So let us discuss some of the constraints that the implementation of this RTI Act has faced at the district level. So we'll be discussing that on the basis of the findings of various empirical studies that have been carried out by several NGOs, institutions, and individuals. So there have been certain behavioral issues. So although this RTI regime has been put into place in all the departments of the district administration of all the states, they have not been working as per its spirit. And the officials at the district level, they have not been able to imbibe the culture of transparency. And so this culture of transparency was something that this RTI Act of 2005, it sought to inculcate in the officers at the district level. However, when we talk about its implementation at the district level, the implementation of the RTI Act at the district level, what has been observed is that the officers at the district level and the departments, the officers who are staffing the various departments at the district administration of various states, they have not been working as per the spirit of the culture of transparency for which this RTI Act was brought. And they have not yet shed their hackneyed mindset of confidentiality. So this mindset of confidentiality is still there. And there are opaque procedures as well. This element of arbitrariness is also there. And there is a lack of accountability on their behalf as well. And they are yet to fully come to terms with the needed culture of transparency for the empowerment of the citizens by providing them the information that they are seeking. So the resistance to new role, it starts with the very appointment of the state public information officers. And what we have observed is that many unwilling persons, they have been appointed for this role of state public information officers. So without their assent, without seeking their assent, they have been appointed as state public information officers. And almost all the departments of the district administration, barring a few exceptions, they have not been able to get rid of the colonial culture of secrecy. Again, that is something we have discussed. And they're reluctant to give the desired information to the information seekers. So this culture of confidentiality, culture of secrecy, colonial mindset, as we have discussed, arbitrariness, opaque procedures, lack of accountability, these things are there. And the culture of transparency, which this RTI Act had sought to imbibe, which it had sought to inculcate amongst the officers working in the various departments of the district administration, that has not been inculcated. The RTI Act has failed in this aspect. And that is very important. If culture of transparency is not there, then the people, the citizens cannot be empowered. So that is why Uh, and one of the major reasons for that is that at the state public information level, at the state information commission, right? At that level, what we have observed is that there is an issue with the very appointment of the state public information officers. And many unwilling persons, they have been appointed for this role without seeking their assent. They have been appointed, and all the departments of the district administration, barring a few, they've not been able to get rid of the colonial culture of secrecy, and they're reluctant to give desired information to the information seekers, and they merely follow the letter of the RTI Act and do not follow its true spirit. So it has not been implemented in letter and spirit. It has only been implemented in letter. But the spirit of this act, that has not been followed by those who are responsible for implementing this act at the very district level, because the colonial culture of secrecy still prevails. And the state public information officers, they consider this role as an additional and thankless burden. So, in this regard, most of them perform their role rather reluctantly and out of compulsion and not out of choice, because they do not get additional financial benefits for these additional responsibilities. So, they do not get any financial benefits for these additional responsibilities that are entrusted to them. That is why they consider it to be a thankless burden. Also, what has been observed is that there has been a lack of capacity also. So the official appointed as state public information officer or assistant state public information officer is supposed to have adequate knowledge about the RTI Act and also the various procedures and processes that are involved in this act. However, this task, it cannot be carried out merely by using common sense or administrative experience of general nature. So that is why what we have seen is that these state public information officers and assistant state public information officers, they mostly lack the aptitude that is required for them to fulfill their duty. And also, most of them have been found incompetent for the performance of this important role, and they have not been subjected to the necessary capacity building that is required by training institutions. And these officials, they're also reluctant to get training on the RTI Act because they do not want to be appointed as SPIOs or state public information officers. So that is why they are reluctant to take any training of this RTI Act. It has also been observed that these officers, they also show reluctance in attending the RTI training programs, since it adds to the pendency of their regular desk work. So that is why officers, they are reluctant in attending the RTI training programs, and they are also apprehensive that they would continue to remain as the state public information officer if they get trained in it. So the ambiguity and lack of clarity in the meaning and implementation of some of the clauses and sub-clauses of the RTI Act of 2005, and the conflicting decisions that many of the information commissions, they take, as well as the divergent interpretation by the different high courts of the different states in their decisions to have, so these have made the role of the state public information officer rather difficult. And there have been certain administrative issues as well. The shortage of staff, that has been a major administrative issue, and that has affected the efficacy of the RTI regime. And some of the state public information officers, they lament the frequency of application and they feel that these applications, they are made by some RTI activists for troubling them. So besides that, relatively junior officers in the department, they are appointed as state public information officers, and they have to perform their roles as per the directions of their superior officers instead of acting in a judicial and fair manner. So that is why, because they have to perform their roles as per the directions of the superior officers, they cannot act in a judicious and fair manner. The state public information officers, they are neither able to get adequate support from their superiors, and neither do they get the needed assistance from the assistant state public information officers and other colleagues, which is required for the performance of their role. So they are not even provided adequate infrastructure also many of the times, like photocopier, fax machine, separate office, secretarial assistance, computer, internet facilities. All these things are not provided. And again, the culture of departmentalization. Now, what is this departmentalization culture? It is related to the tendency of the superior officers to protect their subordinates instead of hauling them up for the supply of delayed or incomplete or vague information to the information seekers. So these are the things: culture of secrecy, lack of transparency. So lack of the culture of transparency, the phenomena of departmentalization, where the superior officers, they are protecting their subordinates instead of hauling them up for the supply of delayed or incomplete or vague information to the information seekers. All these things, and also relatively new officers, junior officers, are appointed as SPIOs, which and because they have to work as per the directions of their superiors, that prevents them from performing their role in a judicious manner. And also the first appellate authorities of the various departments of district administration, they also feel burdened by their official duties, that they are left with little time for the application of this of their mind to these first appeals that are made by the information seekers or the appellant against the decision of the SPIOs of their departments. So they are overburdened by their official duties, and they are left with little time to hear these first appeals. Also, there are certain procedural issues as well. So there is an absence of a time limit for deciding the second appeal. That is a big procedural issue. The absence of a time limit for deciding the second appeal of the information seekers against the decision of the first appellate authorities. And that has proved to be a great hurdle in the way of an effective RTI regime. So that has proven to be a big hurdle in the implementation of this RTI Act. The absence of a time limit for deciding the second appeal. So if there had been a time limit for deciding the second appeal, that would have made things much better. However, that is not there. So because of that, what we see is that for the second appeals, because there is no time limit that is there for the decision of the first appellate authorities to appeal against the decision of the first appellate authorities, that has been a major hurdle in the implementation of this RTI Act. So had there been a time limit, then of course it could have been implemented in a much better way. But because the time limit is not there, so that is why what we are seeing is that this implementation, it has become much more delayed. So a time limit is definitely required, and without that, its implementation cannot be as effective. And also, there's a divergent and contradicting judgments also that are made by the this authorities. what authorities? The first appellate authorities. There is a divergent and contradictory judgments also that they make, and that has also further augmented the confusion amongst the information seekers. And in the long run, all these things have adversely affected the roles of the state public information officers as well as the information seekers also. So these are the procedural issues. We have decided, we've discussed the administrative issues, which included shortage of staff, and also the SPIOs. They are basically lamenting on the frequency of applications. They think that the RTI activists, they are filing applications needlessly to trouble them, and junior officers in the department are appointed as SPIO. They have no choice but to work as per the instructions of their seniors. And also, officers are showing reluctance in attending the RTI training program. There is an ambiguity and lack of clarity in the meaning and implications of some of the clauses and sub-clauses of the RTI Act. And also the conflicting decisions that of the many information commissioners at the state level, and also the different divergent decisions that the different high courts of the states have made regarding the RTI Act of 2005. They have further added to the confusion. They have not helped, but rather they have complicated this entire RTI implementation procedure. So these SPIOs, they are not able to get adequate support from their superiors, and the culture of departmentalization, the superiors are protecting their subordinates instead of hauling them up for providing incomplete and vague and delayed information. They're not being hauled up, rather they are being protected by their superiors. And we have also discussed the procedural issues as well. So to avoid confusion in depositing fee, there should be a receipt head in every public authority to which the application fee could be credited. And instead of bank drafts prescribed in some of the states, payment should be allowed through postal orders and checks and non-judicial stamps, and debit and credit cards of the banker, that should be accepted. And also there is an issue regarding suo motu information that we'll be discussing. The obligation of the public authorities under Section 4, Clause 1, Subclause B of the RTI Act 2005 for self-disclosure of information, it is not being followed properly. Discussing the aspect of suo motu information, and there is an obligation on the public authorities under Section 4, Clause 1, Subclause B of this RTI Act. This obligation is regarding the self-disclosure of information, and this is not being followed properly. And the very intent of this section, it was to reduce the citizens' queries by voluntarily giving most common information on the websites. However, when we see that the websites of these authorities, they are not being updated properly, and the names, phone numbers, addresses of the state public information officers and assistant state public information officers and the appellate authorities, they are not put in the public domain, which should be done. So that is why this act is not being implemented in a way it should have been. And the public authorities at the district level, they have in some cases not displayed the names also of this SPIO and ASPIOs on their websites, which should be done. And there is something called the railway coach syndrome. It is regarding the psyche awareness on the RTI Act that is suffering from this railway coach syndrome, wherein the passengers of an overcrowded railway coach are reluctant to let the new passengers get in their coach, once a new passenger gets in, that passenger also has to follow the same behavior as the old passengers. So similarly, official who has undergone training and knowledge of RTI Act is not willing to disseminate that to the others. So these are some of the issues. There is an apathy in the information seekers as well. And it is pertinent here to mention that those information seekers who are from the BPL, below the poverty line families, they have been exempted from payment of fees. However, this profession, it is being misused by the unscrupulous persons. So much so that the BPL information seekers, they are being used in some cases by unscrupulous elements for hiding their identity and for escaping payment of the fees. And another issue is the frivolous demands. Sometimes the role of the SPIO is it becomes very difficult by the demands for information due to the ulterior motives of the people who are seeking the information on account of personal jealousy or professional or political rivalries among the members of the staff of the department as well. And also, besides that, the information seeking, it has also been made the main or supplementary profession by some legal practitioners and social activists. So some legal practitioners and social activists, they have made information seeking their profession, which is not something that was intended when this act was brought. There are issues regarding record and retrieval as well. So when these SPOs, they are handicapped many of the times, these SPIOs, state public information officers. Why are they handicapped? Due to the poor maintenance of records, and many times it is difficult to timely compile the information that is requested by the information seekers. And if the record is not properly maintained, unnecessary confusion and tension is faced by these SPIOs in gathering the required information that is sought from them under the RTI Act. And also, many a times what has been observed is that many of these SPIOs, state public information officers, they have a non-cooperative and unhelpful attitude. So as per the mandate of this RTI Act and Section 7 Clause 9, ordinarily information, it has to be provided in the requested form. And unless there is any disproportionate diversion of the resources of public authority, it is deemed as detrimental to the safety of records. So that is why there has been an uncanny habit that has been observed. Now, what is this habit? This habit is that of providing information in the form of in a form other than that was requested by the appellant. So especially allowing the inspection instead of providing of Xeroxed copies. It causes a lot of inconvenience for those who seek information. So these are some of the issues that have been faced. Now we'll move on to the next unit. The next unit is regarding the role of media. So as we all know that the Right to Information Act, it has completed 15 years, 19 years now. And this Act of 2005, it confers on all citizens a right to seek information, and it correspondingly makes it the duty of the public authorities, in this case the SPIOs and the ASPIOs that we have been discussing at the district level, the state public information officers and the assistant state public information officers. So it is their duty to disseminate information in order to ensure better governance and accountability as per the RTI Act of 2005. And this act, it became fully it became fully effective on 12th October 2005, and it has been a paradigm shift, a landmark and noteworthy legislation that was enacted by the Parliament of India. And this act, it enabled the establishment of an unprecedented regime of RTI for the citizens of this nation, and it has, in many sense, it has overridden the Official Secrets Act of 1923, and it also strikes at the heart of the paradigm that was long practiced by the government officials and public functionaries. What was that paradigm? It was of confidentiality. So that was the dictum that they followed. It was confidentiality is the rule and disclosure is an exception. However, it has this RTI Act, it has turned this entire dictum on its head. It has now said that disclosure is the rule and confidentiality is an exception. So This act, it has sought to establish that transparency is the norm and secrecy is an exception in the working of every public authority. And this RTI Act, it aims to ensure maximum openness and transparency in the machinery and functioning of the government at all levels, central, state, and local. So that is why, as we all know, that the media is regarded as the fourth estate of democracy. So that is why the role of the media in the implementation of the RTI Act becomes very, very important, because the media, they have the ability to get more reliable sources of information from the government agencies, and they can create a sense of social awareness also amongst the people about participatory governance and development. So the media, it is required to play a crucial role in sensitizing the various stakeholders of good governance about the utility and relevance of this new RTI legislation. And as we know that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 19 of that, it has clearly stated that everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. And this right, it includes freedom to hold opinions without interference, and also to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of any frontiers. So that is why the media, it has a very essential role to play in the development of an information society that this RTI Act, it sought to create, and it is regarded as an important contributor to the freedom of expression and plurality in any society. And the mass media, it is the most important vehicle for information, knowledge, and communication in a democratic polity like ours. And media plays a very important role, a very significant role in shaping societies, especially in shaping opinions in society, because they provide the public sphere of information, and they also enable social cultural discourse as well. And also they play a very important role in increasing the participation of the citizens in governance, and also in ensuring accountability of those who are in positions of power. Many a times we see many scams and scandals and corruption issues, corruption scams, they are unearthed by the media as well, because the media is the most accessible, cost effective, and widespread source of information and platform for expression, that we already know. And information is power. So that is why the media, it can play a crucial role in building inclusive information society in our country, and which is based on knowledge power and its distribution. So it reflects how right to information law, the RTI law, it has helped the media to uncover the maladies and flaws that are prevalent in various organs of the government. And it has played a very important role, media, to bring sensitiveness on various issues amongst the masses, and they have had serious ramifications on social life as well. And the media, it deliberates also how this RTI Act, it helps in getting access to court proceedings and parliamentary processes, and how different government institutions can be approached for relevant information. So this unit regarding the media, it also analyzes the role of media in highlighting the issues of public importance through RTI. And also we have discussed that how the constraints and challenges that are there, that are faced by the media in accessing justice for the people. And also in this unit we'll be discussing that with concrete efforts and restrained attitude, media can help in bringing the RTI regime in true sense. Now let us discuss the importance of the RTI Act for the media. The RTI Act is a very important tool for journalists, especially in a country like ours, where the press is not absolutely free. The RTI Act becomes a very important tool for journalists, and because if press freedom is partial, then journalists, they can use this RTI to get important information from the state and central government. So that is why RTI Act is a very important tool. And this RTI Act of 2005, it has made it mandatory to give information to those parties who had successfully filed this RTI to government bodies. So government, they cannot escape from providing information. It has become mandatory. and also timely response to the information seekers from the government is also a very important aspect. And that is why this RTI is considered a very important tool by journalists, because without this, they will never be able to go in depth. And even this Press Council of India, it has stated that this RTI Act is extremely vital for the media in its endeavor to be a watchdog of the society. And there are few journalists who are able to break the iron curtain of official non-cooperation. And this RTI Act, it has encouraged journalists to think large and ask more questions about the affairs of the state, and also to promote accountability. So today, if we see the journalists, they are no longer required to go by the words of the people or rumors. Through this RTI Act, they have in a way achieved transparency in the public sphere. And that is why we have seen that various states in India, they have made a good response to the RTI. And this also reflects the slow but steady momentum that RTI is gaining in our country, because information is considered to be a oxygen of democracy. In a society where people live freely, information it serves the greater good. And there's a direct relationship which exists between RTI, right to information, informed citizen, and fair governance. So that is why the RTI, it gives citizen an opportunity of being informed. So in the next class, we'll be discussing the access of the media to court proceedings. And that is the only part that is left of this 9th unit that we'll be discussing. And in this class today, we have discussed the constraints that RTI has faced in its implementation at the district level. And also we have discussed the role of the media. In the next class, we'll be discussing the access of media to court proceedings, and how this RTI Act has been used by the media to access court proceedings, and how the right of speech and expression, including that of the press, can be limited both to accommodate the special needs of administration of justice and also the special claims of the legislative chambers as part of their legislative privileges. Those things we'll be discussing in the next class. We have discussed in today's class the 8th unit and the 9th unit. Only one part of 9th unit is left, which is regarding the access of the media to court proceedings. And that we'll be discussing in detail in the next class, wherein we will also discuss the role of the civil society as part of the 10th unit. So if we talk about the access of media to court proceedings, the right of speech and expression, it becomes very important to that of the press, and it can be. So thank you so much for joining today's class.